We're in trouble. Our forest sector is not sustainable in the way that we're doing forestry today. British Columbia is facing a number of significant issues within our forest sector right across the province, with the wildfires that we're seeing in the summer, the flooding that we've seen. Most significant to me, and those are significant by themselves, but to me, as a trapper and an outdoors person over the years, the depletion of our wildlife has been alarming to me when we've seen such drastic wildlife population decreases. The start of this happened in 1945 with the adoption of the Sustainable Yield Forestry Strategy, where we started looking at fiber as the only value of our forest. This is what we have, primary forest. We had an abundance of primary forest in British Columbia, but it's gone. And this is what we're left with, it's the clear cuts. We need to find the balance and get the balance right, where we're taking all those values into consideration as we move forward into the next century. And we excluded all other values. We excluded the wildlife, we excluded the biodiversity, we excluded just about everything that comprises the natural forest throughout our province here. You know, with the Sustainable Yield Strategy that was adopted in 1945, that has led us down this path, and here we are in 2023 with a focus on fiber only. And we miss all the other values on the land, like we see here, the deciduous growth, the biodiversity that we have, the insects that we have that contribute towards the food chain for all the wildlife that we have with the birds and the mammals and whatnot. And that's forgotten, and we need to bring that back. Our wildlife populations have diminished by 50 to 70% across the province. And that's problematic. And then that also leads to the hydrological integrity issues in the watersheds that we see. Without the forest canopy over top, we're drying out the landscape and causing all kinds of issues from a flood perspective, but also from a wildfire perspective at the end of the day as well. You know, British Columbia is once known as one of the most biologically and ecologically diverse provinces in Canada, but also probably in North America. And I think we've lost ground to a large degree with respect to those two different issues. But they can come back. I've always been the eternal optimist, and I think with hard work and a bunch of legislative changes sooner than later, I think we can start in that direction, but it's going to take us decades to get there. And but at least, you know, maybe 5 or 7 generations from me down the road, they'll start to see a lot of the biodiversity and ecological diversity come back to British Columbia. You know, British Columbia has reached a crisis point. After we've been clear cutting since 1960, and like I've mentioned, the hectares cleared has been phenomenal here. But there is a linkage, and it's time British Columbians woke up to the fact that the loss of forest cover has not only led to the degradation of our wildlife populations, our fish populations, our salmon populations across the province in every watershed of British Columbia, but it's also affected the hydrological integrity of the province to the point where it's led to the spring freshets magnitudes the 100-year floods are seeing on a regular basis today. And that's problematic. And this is going to take decades to overcome. You know, what UBC is saying that it takes 80 years for a tree to grow to the point where it's starting to provide the same level of protection. We've got several decades ahead of us of floods and wildfires to contend with as a result of overharvesting over the last 60 years here. And when I talk about wildfires, and we look at this space that we're sitting around here right now, this ground is drying out. This is early June. This should still be very moist. There should be lots of water areas around this particular area, but it's dried right out. And this will continue to get dry as we go into July and August, and it's going to impact the level of fires that we see. And this is not unique. This is the same pattern that we can expect right across the province of British Columbia. So we really need to take a look at this. Legislation needs to change in order to stop the harvesting that we've seen, the clear-cut logging, and adopt ecological-based forest practices. We need to look at the complete value proposition for our forests, not only the wildlife and the habitat necessary to sustain all species of wildlife. I don't like looking at a species of risk legislation per se, because they're all interrelated. There's a symbiotic relationship between all the species that we have. But we also have to look at the transpirational value of a forest that keeps it cool in the summer months. So are clear cuts contributing to climate change? Perhaps they are. We need to look at the hydrological integrity of the watersheds that we have in the province to make sure that we maintain them as well moving forward. So there's a lot of work to do, and the sooner we start on that, the better.